Wants to get his bags of Skittles.
So there's another thing I was thinking about, which you had a long time ago a discussion on transsexuals with Ask Yourself, and he tried to distinguish sex and gender. And I was just wondering, what does it mean for a gender to be a woman? Like, how does that make any sense if you distinguish it from the sex?
Listen, these people are living in the land of make believe. Okay, they're already living in a land of make believe that their world can make sense around them without acknowledging God as the creator and sustainer of the present order. So it shouldn't surprise us that when they go from that worldview of incoherence, where they believe that they are coherent when they're not, that now many atheists are buying into this transvestitism, right? They're already deluded about the nature of reality, so it shouldn't be surprising to us that they want to normalize, excuse me, these male transvestites, fantasizing that they're something that they are not.
Um, Ask Yourself tries to distinguish gender from sex by saying that gender is it's more. He's actually equivocating, in my opinion, on the word. He's using it more to mean like style, like just the clothes you wear, the way you present yourself. But here's the problem: then, if we take what he says that it's merely and only style, and woman is just like a term for style, then what is a word in the English language to describe an adult human female? Since woman is just a kind of style that anyone can adopt, right? Like retro style. Woman is just like a style. Well, what's a word for adult human female in the English language then?
Yeah. By the way,
it's not woman.
To show you how psychotic things are getting, the powers to be at Twitter banned the Twitter account or suspended the Twitter account of a Christian organization that merely referenced the assistant director of health as being born a biological male. And they either suspended or banned the account for that.
Yeah. So these people, when they defend it, they're very slimy. They're very, have you heard the term the Moat and Bailey tactic? Have you heard that before?
No, I haven't. Tell us about it.
Well, it's the idea, I don't know who came up with it. It's probably really old, but the idea is that the moat is like it's like a picture of a castle. The Bailey is where you'd retreat to if you come under heavy attack. And the moat is sort of like the general courtyard. And the moat is how they actually operate in the world and what they mean when they say things, but when they're actually in a debate and they're having to defend it, they retreat from what they really mean. And they start saying, like what Ask Yourself does, where he says, oh, it's just style. But if it's just style, then how come there's people out there having ghastly operations on themselves and injecting their bodies with different chemicals? How is this merely and only style? These people are attempting to change their properties from male to female or vice versa. Yeah. It's not just some superficial changes they're attempting. Yeah.
Well, I think what helped facilitate this is that within the medical community, where plastic surgery, was done to try to correct, malformations or injury, but then it took on a life of its own of people who wanted to manipulate themselves, not because there was anything wrong with their body, but to suit whatever their fancy was. Oh, I want to look younger.
Yeah, the Moat and Bailey is basically where people in a debate or when they're being confronted, they will lie about their actual position is because they know their actual position is indefensible. So they'll retreat to a position they consider defensible and claim that's where they were all along.
Where did you pick this up?
I think I first heard it in a video by a YouTuber named The Distributist. He might be a Christian. I don't know if he is. I think he's some sect of Christianity. I don't really know. But he did a video. He saw a debate between Sargon of Akkad and somebody else, and he did like a review of it. And in that, he kind of brings this idea up, and I'm assuming he got it from someplace else.
That's great because it always intrigues me when we can pin down the patterns of deception. Okay.
Yeah, I thought it was a good analysis of what people
Yeah,
do. And
yeah, good.
someone else came, because I couldn't remember like the moat and the bailey. I couldn't remember which was which was the defensive, like the defensive area, and which was the courtyard. And so someone came up with a little saying, and they call it the moral moat and the bullshit bailey. The moral moat is like where, I mean, it's not really moral, but it's like, what if they were being truthful? That's what they would inform you of their opinions.
Well, we would know that wouldn't apply to atheists because we know atheists are always truthful about what they say, right?
Yeah. Well, atheists do that too, right? It's the same idea.
That was good. I like that.
An example would be when radical feminists are in debate and they're confronted with some of the man hatred that they espouse, and then they retreat to
Come on,
saying,
come on.
we just want equality. We just want equality. That's all we want is equal treatment. That's all. Well, they're lying.
Well, that's what the homosexuals used to say. We just, we just want people to stop imposing their morality on us. Tell that to the cake makers out west.
Do you guys remember when Matt Dillahunty was in his costume as Hilda, and the one guy was getting
Who?
aroused?
Who?
Hilda,
No, who?
Hilda D. Labloviator.
Oh, yes, yes. Matt Dillabloviator, yes.
Yeah, do you remember when he was in drag and the one guy's getting aroused while he's sitting next to the gentleman?
I remember the look on the guy's face. Well, you know what? After having seen that video, I would start to suspect that Matt was maybe secretly a transvestite. But since he always wears a goatee, it's really not conducive to you being a closet tranny. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
It's
he needs
kind
to
of
go in
hard.
for.
It's kind of hard to put makeup over a goatee.
Absolutely, I think he should consult with a laser hair removal specialist before he goes through his
Well,
transition.
let's not be fair. I mean, I take my fair share of criticism of Matt Dillabloviator, but I don't want to even suggest that. I mean, because that goatee is prima facie evidence that he's probably not.
Can you identify as someone older than yourself?
I don't know. What do you mean?
Like these people are trying to change their sexualities and whatever else. Can you change your age?
Look, you don't understand. This isn't about reason. This is about one thing. It is catering to the delusions of people who are deranged. Okay? There was
Now,
a guy in another country who, because of his diet and physical fitness regime, he petitioned the court, and I forget which country it was, somewhere in Europe, one of the Scandinavian countries. He petitioned the court to drop his age from what it was down to 10 or more years lower because of his physical state. Okay.
wow. So it
And
is
the
true
court
when you can.
refused. But how is that not any different than these transvestite issues? Look, once you remove God from the sphere of rational discussion, then anything can be rationalized now. These are the same. Wait a minute. The I mean, this just blows my mind. The very people who say you believe in talking snakes. These are the same people who will defend males who are transvestites as being women.
By the very same token, a driver's license should just basically be a Build-A-Bear Workshop slip. Just make it how you want it.
That was good.
Name it whatever you want it. It's whatever age, whatever height, whatever weight. I'm gonna petition the state legislature to make it change the ID card so it says "In God We Trust" and remember for people to brush their teeth and pray at night.
Even when you can show atheists the absolute irrationality of their position, they don't care. They're 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 just committed to irrationality because the irrationality allows them to evade God. Their prime directive: we will not acknowledge God. We won't do it.
How long before private schools have to meet some law that you can't pray in private schools either?
Well, what'll happen is incremental changes. Okay. sometimes faster, sometimes slower. But you see, you see, you got to give credit to the atheists, the radicals, the leftists, the socialists, because they have a long-term goal, okay, and they're trying to go for these goals and radical social transformation even long past they're dead and gone. This is a religion with them, okay.
Remember, Ruth Bader Ginsburg said Trump can't fill the seat. She had a dying will.
Well, yeah, or so she said.
When an atheist asks you any theological question, you just need to answer, hold my beer while I jump to the moon.
And you know where I got that question from? Okay, very simple. When teaching his disciples on salvation and they were shocked, Jesus said, with men, this is impossible. But with God, all possibility resides. God is the source and the basis of what's possible and impossible. Now, when they go, I lack belief in God. I don't have a reason to believe in God. There's no evidence for God. It's like, okay, fine, right? So then, why is anything impossible in your world? Okay, if I at Matt Yester or Parakeet or praise I am that I am, why is anything impossible? You know what their answer is going to be. And the atheists, when they start shooting off their mouth as though some of their propositions have a greater qualitative intelligibility or truth aptness, say how in a world where anything goes, okay, how then why would one proposition be of more value than another? These very same people who say they don't have a reason to believe in God will turn around and say, well, you believe in superstition. So, wait a minute. What at a fundamental level in reality would prohibit any of these beliefs? What? And all the best that they can do is go, oh, laws of nature. Okay. Are laws of nature eternal? Have they been imposed? Okay. Will they continue in perpetuity? Have they been secured? Are they real? They hate that. They lose their minds when you ask that question. Because you know what? All we're simply doing is we're Mirandizing them. Anything they say can and will be used against them. Right? And so when they put forth a criterion of belief by which they dismiss God, then we're going to hold their feet to the fire and say, good. Do you abandon your own criterion of belief when you believe in your not God world? And the answer is yes, they do.
Hey, Darth, how's it going, buddy?
Is that praise I am?
Yep.
Yep, I'm doing pretty good. Saw you're on the other night.
Yeah, they censored my other name, a stupid copyright, because there was something with a restaurant or something on one of my videos.
And what was
I never heard. That's just insanity to me.
what was the rest?
So I don't know what's going on with YouTube, but it looks pretty dim.
So it was an actual business with that name?
Well, I mean, it wasn't like they broadcasted it. They didn't say, like, at the beginning of the video, please do not do this and that. Please don't copy this. Well, it was like a macaroni video. We were just sharing, like, what macaroni tastes good. Like, they had some bacon in there and some other things. And they weren't explicit with it. Please do not share. And all of a sudden, 5 months later, whatever, how many months later, I get striked for it. And
Oh, come on.
Yeah.
Did they contact you and say, "Please take it down"?
No, just YouTube
Oh,
did,
come
and
on. Oh, come on.
yeah.
Now, how many seconds of the video did you use?
Maybe about a minute or two out of their 10-minute video. It was not the full video.
I'm just wondering if it technically could qualify under fair use.
Yeah, I tried to. I argued that, and YouTube came back and says if you keep on arguing that, we're gonna take your account down completely because they think that's disingenuous. So this YouTube's being tyrannical right now. I don't.
It's
I
okay.
think
Listen, they're just gonna facilitate people running to alternate video sources. That's all.
yeah, yeah.
Same
I did a
thing.
review of you last night against that Mark Drysdale, the mental midget.
I hope I came out looking good.
You did. But I've known Mark
Wait
for
a
a
minute.
while now.
So I take it the check cleared.
Yes. Yeah, and I've known Mark for a while now, and he just keeps on doing the same blunders over and over. He has no interest in trying to change his corrupt viewpoints. He just keeps making the same blunders and blunders. So to me, he's a religious atheist, just like all the other ones.
Well, his reasoning was worse than a child because at least a child has
Yeah.
an excuse for their poor reasoning.
Yep.
And have you
Exactly.
ever taken in many of my debates? Have you ever read the comment sections?
Oh my gosh, yeah. You have more haters than freaking King Jong Il. You and King Jong Il have the same
Oh
freaking
my
base of
god!
haters.
Gosh, these people are. I mean, they're having hemorrhoidal attacks over me. I mean, woo.
Oh yeah. You are a hated person, but it's not really you personally. It's your arguments, I believe, that exposes them. They know the power that you bring when your argumentation. Your arguments are powerful.
No, it's because I'm mean. Because sometimes I get angry at my interlocutor, say, "Don't overtalk me."
Yeah, you're a bully. That's what they always like to frame you as, a bully.
Well, yeah. So in other words, because I insist on somebody answering the question instead of dodging or prevaricating.
Yep. Yeah, and you show the ultimacy of the Christian God, the Christian faith, and they absolutely hate it. They despise it. They start screeching.
Well,
But yeah, great work, man.
I'm strongly considering buying stock in the Preparation H company.
Yes.
With the level of hemorrhoids that I'm inflicting, that that there's got to be an increase of sales of that product.
Absolutely. Yeah, you're fun to watch. Paul Ross is making some videos of you. They're impressive. I'm really enjoying those. I'm sharing them. Actually, there is a young Christian new in the faith, and I shared videos of you from Paul Ross, and he's excited. So I appreciate all the stuff you're
Yeah,
doing out there.
Paul comes in here every once in a while. I think he calls himself the boss, and Paul's a good guy. And you know what? The quality of his videos is really very good.
Yeah.
Very, very, very. I like his videos. The music,
Great
the
cinematic. Yeah, I love his cinematic stuff he puts out there.
Smokey Snake decided to do a hit piece on me with Paul Ross, and he thought that Paul Ross was going to chime in, taking a dump on me, and Paul Ross didn't, and Smokey Snake was very surprised.
Well, you heard what happened to Smokey, right?
No, what?
Oh boy. So Smokey Sane was exposed as a rapist of a young child. And it's
Well,
public record.
hold on. Since
Mhm.
yours truly has been the victim of smears, defamation, and slander,
Oh, right,
and libel,
yes, right.
okay, is this something that is verified in terms of the courts of law?
Yes, at least one is. One he was prosecuted for, the others he was charged with. It's public record. And
Okay.
I mean, I don't want to dox his name, but there was other people who doxed him though. I'm not going to do it, but
Can
You can.
you send me DM me that information?
Yes, I certainly will. And
Thank
actually,
you.
you can see his
Yeah,
last video.
I certainly do not want to spread rumors about people. Okay.
Yeah, that's
Okay.
anti-biblical. That'd be anti-Christian.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I mean, yeah, because the atheists love, you know, repeating the rumors about me, which are not true.
Oh yeah, yeah.
You know.
Yeah, you especially know the implications of rumors and slander. So yeah, I agree.
And
You have to be.
interestingly enough, some of the prime people that are, stoking the coals of the rumor mills about me, they will say things that, I mean, just about much of what everything they say, but there are certain things that I say that I'm like, that I know that they're lying. Okay, because there's no basis to this stuff to these rumors, right?
Right,
They think there's
right.
a basis, but they don't understand what they're dealing with, right? They don't really understand the background information. So they think they have information on me, but they actually don't. Right?
Oh, I know. I've heard about your dog and all this other stuff. How much stuff and rumors get spread around you? I mean, come
Oh well,
on.
it
This
is true. Okay, I'm going to dox myself. I do have a dog. Yes, I do.
right.
And when the dog barks, sometimes I do take it out.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, man, you are a
Yeah.
villain to the atheist society. Absolutely.
The comments are so bad in the comments section on YouTube in my debates, or the secret recordings that Tom Rabbit and others make, that I'm really beginning to think that we should contact the Centers for Disease Control to see if they can get a vaccine for the Darth Dawkins derangement syndrome that is epidemic.
Yes.
Hopefully there might be a cure someday.
Yeah, yeah. When someone ought to make a meme or something with that, a vaccine, that'd be hilarious.
One day, hopefully in the future, there'll be a cure for Darth Dawkins derangement syndrome.
Yeah, I called in Atheist Experience the other day. I was like one of the first ones that called. I waited for an hour and 40 minutes and they still didn't take my call. So I don't know, like, if they choose their callers or not, but it seems
Oh well,
like they,
we
yeah.
did a critique. We did a critique in here last week about recent things that he said, and it was just Matt the Lebloviator statements were a monumental disaster. I mean, it was just even I was shocked at some of the stupid things that he said.
Oh, yeah,
He
yeah.
just, and
He's a
because
methodological naturalist. Yeah.
well, here's the deal. He states many things with complete certitude, but then in debates he'll say, "I can't be certain about anything."
Right, right.
Oh, have you seen his sister?
I've seen his wife, and there was a debacle going on
No,
with his
no,
wife.
no, no, no.
No, I have not seen his sister.
No, his sister is an atheist apologist too.
Oh man. Oh god. But his family, his
Look,
parents
no,
are
no,
not.
no. Look in Atheist Helpline. That's Matt Dillahunty's sister.
Oh, okay. Wow, that's interesting. I'm gonna check that out. I know you had on the other day his parents, and they were
Did
not
you look at
impressed with him.
look in Atheist Helpline? Did you look at it?
Let's see here. Yeah, yep.
Yeah, that's Matt Dillahunty's sister. That's
Wow.
Hilda. That's Hilda. That's Hilda Dillahunty.
I swear I've came across a person named Hilda on other atheist streams. I swear I have.
Get a good look at Hilda. Doesn't that look strikingly like Matt?
Wow.
They're like doppelgangers.
Here's a video of his sister doing the atheist experience.
That's him.
There you go. Here, just click on, watch that for a few seconds. That's Hilda, Matt Dillahunty's atheist sister. She's a looker. Just watch it for a minute. Tell me what you think. Sexy or what?
Oh, the transvestite Dillahunty. Yep, I've seen that. Oh, the red-haired bomber. Yep. Yeah, doppelgangers.
You sent me atheistic sludge pit, and then my name is in Paul Ross's video. I'll have to look at that. I don't remember that one.
Yeah, you were. That was a pretty good one.
Oh my
if you
goodness!
go to,
There's the raging atheist in that. He is probably the dumbest atheist on the internet.
He's an imbecile. Yeah.
Yeah, and the sad thing is he doesn't know.
No, he doesn't. He's like, so it's the same thing with Mark Drysdale. They're like two peas in a pod.
Well, I don't think that's fair to Mark, because the raging atheist is far worse.
You know, you said two peas in a pod. They're two gladiators in hell.
Listen. Comparing Mark Drysdale to the raging atheist would be like comparing Ted Bundy to Mao Zedong.
Yeah, well, raging is more belligerent and more profane. Absolutely.
No, I'm talking about the magnitude of ineptness.
Yeah.
No, but I didn't hear. What do you think? Is Matt Dillahunty's sister sexy there?
Yeah,
she's a looker.
He's a looker.
No, they.
Yeah.
It.
Yeah, what is something to say something really quick about Smokey? He on his channel did the worst thing he could possibly do to incriminate himself. He tried to do damage control. And if you check out his last video, he actually tries to lead people on a wild goose chase. And it's
Can you send me a link to that? Send me a link.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'll send you.
Don't forget to send me those other links as well. Right?
Yeah, absolutely.
You know that he did a couple of videos dumping on me.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And I thought they were a pathetic attempt to defame you. Yeah, he's not one of my favorite characters.
But not that I'm taking you to task, but I mean, unless you have absolute confirmation of this legally, then, and I don't have to tell you this, but I'll just say for everyone else, we should not be spreading rumors that are defamatory or slanders in nature.
Correct. Correct.
And I don't want to even do that to people that I don't like.
No, God wouldn't respect that either. Yeah, so I know because his public record.
All right, I'm going to make an exception. You didn't let me on your show the last time, okay? So you're done. You're done. I'm exposing you right now. Praise that I am secretly has a fetish. Are you ready? I hold on to your seatbelt, folks. He has a fetish for fruitcake. You know, the kind you get at Christmas? He actually likes that stuff. Okay. So the next time you decide not to let me on your show, you know, I'll have to tell them that you wear ugly Christmas sweaters too.
Yep. It sounds it sounds a little bit like Smokey there. He was like spreading this crap about you.
Well, you see, he got royally ticked when he was having a good old time uh, dumping on biblical presuppositionalism and by reading from Dan Story's book on apologetics. And I
Yep.
wrote him a message on his YouTube page, and I said, Dan Story he got a master's at the Simon Greenleaf School of Simon Greenleaf University, which I believe, unless I'm mistaken, was founded and run by John Warwick Montgomery. John Warwick Montgomery, who's somebody I happen to respect and like. I don't want to throw him under the bus. He's a brilliant man, highly educated, great defender of the faith. But he was guilty of misunderstanding and misrepresenting Cornelius Van Til.
Yep.
And he's influenced others. Like Craig was a student of John Warwick Montgomery. Well, because of that, Dan Story, in all likelihood, going to Simon Greenleaf School, probably picked up on their anti-Ventilian position, given their apologetics. And because of that, you know, Dan Story wrote what he did, misrepresenting it, and then he influenced Smokey Stain. So when I confronted him that this is a misrepresentation, what Dan said about Ventilian apologetics, and I gave him chapter and page numbers for this, right? And he had a conniption fit.
Yeah, yeah. And then he just goes to insults and calls you a Vantilian whore or something like that. That's his nature.
Oh, that's one of the more mild things he said. He has said about Van Til that he was. I know he referred to Van Til as a degenerate at one point.
Yep. Yep.
Right. And I mean, this is just off the wall. You know, whether you agree with Van Til or not, I mean, a degenerate? Come on.
No, of course not.
As far as we know, Van Til lived an impeccable life, at least from our human perspective. Of course, we're all guilty sinners before God. But to call Van Til a degenerate, I mean, this is psycho.
No. Van Til was a visionary. I think he started a revolution of how to properly defend God, or you know, like how you attack other presuppositions against God, like atheism. I think he's a visionary, absolutely.
You know, Van Til was not opposed to using evidences to defend certain Christian beliefs, but he said that we must not present evidences in such a way that we compromise on certain foundational biblical doctrines, which is what evidentialists do.
Correct.
Like, for example, Van Til and Bonson would say that we don't reason that God is the best explanation. We reason that God has revealed himself, not that it's probable.
Right, he's the source and foundation of all things, right.
Right. And Van Til said that even at the seminary, there were people that had much greater expertise at going through the various historical evidences to account for and explain certain biblical things and the resurrection of Jesus Christ. But he says, as long as it doesn't compromise fundamental biblical truths or cater to certain false beliefs of unbelievers. And one of those would be autonomous human reasoning.
Yep.
Yeah. By the way, there's a book. I don't know if it's called Ventil and the Use of Evidences. It's in my Google Drive. It's a short book if you want to read it. Right.
Oh, I love reading that stuff. Yeah, I'll check that
Okay.
out, man.
Here,
Appreciate
I'll
that.
send you my link to my Google Drive. Okay.
Awesome. Heck yeah.
You send it to me too.
Just be careful. Just make sure you're sitting down when you access it.
Yeah.
Could you give
There
it
is
to me?
one you. Yeah.
Is it possible I can get that too, Darth? This is Nick.
Other than praise I am, you're going to have to send me a DM requesting it. Okay, so this way I won't, because when I have multiple people asking, I'm being
Roger that.
I have Joe Biden moments. Okay, so if you want the link, send me a DM.
Okay, I sent you one.
Where'd you graduate? St. Hilda's School of Bloviation?
Saint Hilda School of Perpetual Motion.
Actually, ministry.
I mean, we did a critique of what he said, not this past Sunday, but I think the previous one, and it was disastrous what he said. It was horrendously bad.
By any chance, was it a train wreck?
Yeah, pretty close to it. I mean, that's one of my favorite, illusions.
Now, parakeets got fetishes for Christmas sweaters, but I have a fetish for train wrecks.
No. That wasn't Parakeet. That was Praise That I Am has a fetish for ugly Christmas sweaters and for fruitcake. So, but now I, you know what, because I'm a loose cannon, I probably won't be invited back on his YouTube stream again.
Never.
Matt's more of a
Yeah, man, you're
squiggler.
always welcome to my channel anytime, brother.
Oh, thank you. It's interesting. Some of the atheists that are YouTubers that have come in here, who they've absolutely gotten their rear end handed to them, where they literally were defenseless, that they couldn't defend atheism as coherent or intelligible whatsoever. They would immediately the following week go back on to YouTube doing their atheist YouTube streams. I mean, it's amazing. I even confronted one of them, YFNA, your friendly neighborhood atheist. I said, why have you, continued to do the show when you admitted that you were defenseless in defending your atheism? He says, oh, I didn't say that. I go, yeah, I did. I recorded you. I have the recording of it. I called into a show maybe like a week ago, and I said, can you please tell me why your atheism is coherent? And there were 3 atheists on the panel. All 3 of them just mocked and ridiculed me. The host lied about me, and none of them would defend the proposition that atheism is coherent.
Was that the AM radio show?
That was the what? No. That was the AM radio show was a couple of years ago down in Florida. That was the Florida atheists. Those are the old dudes. What I'm referring to is YF, your friendly neighborhood atheist. Okay. Yeah, we did a critique in here the other day. I don't know if somebody recorded or not. We did a whole long critique of Armin Navabi debating Saitan Brokengate. This guy was so painful to listen to that I almost had to take Tylenol for headache. The guy was just such a moron. Have you ever heard of Armin Navabi? He has the largest atheist podcast subscriber base.
They may know him as Armin the Martian.
Oh, Marvin the Martian.
Armin the Martian. Yeah. Yeah, he's really bad. Yeah, you're really pounding down those Floridians, man. Yeah, beating up on the retirees. Yeah.
Oh, can you imagine if it had been a level playing field? What it would have resulted in? See, they want to get rid of me as fast as possible.
That was pretty quick, man. They were just like, yeah, we're not cut out for this. So, yeah.
Imagine if it was roles.
It was 3-on-1 though. I mean, They
Imagine
had
if
you
one of those
pwned.
old gentlemen called into Darth's show with three of you guys, Parakeet and Matt.
Well, you know what? I have hopes we can do something like that at some time in the near future. But when I have done live streams requesting that atheists come on, the only atheists that we can get to come on are either people who have engaged in stalking in the past or just complete idiots who don't know that they're idiots.
Yeah. Darth would still be the old guy on our side of things. So, out of the three of us. So.
Matt Dillabloviator turned down an interaction with yours truly on Modern Day Debate. Let's see, which it's his prerogative. There are certain stalkers that I won't give the time of day to. And I'm trying to think. There was Godless Engineer was requested to have an interaction on Modern Day Debate with me. He refused.
Darth, I called into Ethan's show last week, Friendly Neighborhood Atheist, and I asked him and his host, a pretty straightforward question, just like what was the best evidence for God that they have heard, and what did they think was wrong with it? And essentially, I got an answer that was like, they all are the same. They all suck. The argument from contingency is just as convincing as look at the beautiful trees. I was like, wow, really?
Yeah, they're just numb. They're just numb nuts. They really are. Well, why do you think he wouldn't let me on his show? Why do you think he lied about me? Okay. Why do you think he shut me down? He did not want to have an adult interaction on his YouTube live stream because he knew what was going to go down.
Did something just happen while I was away?
No, I'm talking about when I called into the YFN Atheist stream about a week ago. He admitted to me on 2 occasions that his atheism was indefensible. Was it not? It couldn't be coherently defended. Yet he continues to do his atheist, streaming. Right?
You ever talk to Malpass again?
I've talked with him at least on 10 occasions.
Yeah, I know, but recently you talked to him again, or
Not recently, no.
you should ask him for on Modern Day Debate.
That would be fun. I would be willing to do that.
Well, the last thing I heard out of Malpass after he debated Darth was he was trying to formulate some argument that because he doesn't know that God exists, therefore the Christian God does not exist.
Oh yeah, he
and
he
then as
tried
soon
to.
as he says it, he turns and sprints into the bushes to get away from any questions about that.
Well, you heard my refutation of that with Giansar today, right?
Well, I'd say they have they have the cart before the horse, because in order to establish they're not suppressing the truth and unrighteousness, they'd first have to establish there's no God. Because in the case God does exist, then it doesn't
That's
matter what their
right.
reasonings
That's
about
right.
their states of mind are.
To say that you don't know God, you're going to have to sustain the implied or the implicit proposition that all the facts you're acquainted with don't necessitate referencing God.
He would
How do
also
they
have
do
to
that?
sustain that he knows all the truth value of all propositions, even relating to his own mind and its workings.
Well, I like Alec because unlike many of the atheists that we run into that are skeevy, sleazy, reprobate, just reprehensible, Alex at least presents himself as a thoughtful adult, and with an air of decency. Right?
Well, when he was doing that, sort of presenting that line of argumentation, he was sort of yucking it up with Ask Yourself, and maybe Jack Angstreich was in there too. I'm not really sure. But ever since then, you notice he hasn't come to you and presented that line of reasoning at all. So it's almost like he
Well,
knows that it's.
well, guess what? He knows where to find me. Hey,
Yep. Sort of like salve on a burn. You just slap some salve on it. You don't go back into the fire, right? To test the efficacy of your salve.
well, I asked him point blank. I said, you have a PhD in philosophy, which we respect. So how is it that God doesn't exist? And his answer, you ready for it, folks? Well, I just think all gods are just made up. I said, is that the best you can do? He goes, yep.
Well, right there, he's conceiving himself as neutral too, right? It's not that he denies the existence of God; he's just unconvinced. So he doesn't really have to present a defeater for God.
But you know what though? I've never been so humiliated after my experience yesterday with that philosopher. Boy, did
Perspective
he really?
philosophy.
Yeah, did he put me in my place?
Ooh.
That was an interesting one. It's
He-
just it's disappointing to see someone who seems to, in the arguments I've seen, present themselves in a half decent manner, and then just really present themselves in such an awful display comparatively, right, to the rest of their debates. Wow, it's
Well,
just,
you see, people like that, the way he's responding to me is not like one adult to another. It's like that he's, just freshly got his hot off the press, his master's degree in philosophy, and he's been assigned to teach a freshman introductory class to philosophy, and he's trying to bamboozle everybody with his rhetorical flourishes and nomenclature dropping. I wasn't impressed with him at all.
well, remember when you asked him what's ultimate, and he said becoming? I thought about it for a second, and I'm pretty sure that's a synonym for Thomas Jump's existence.
he's out like
Yeah.
being or something. Can't remember.
Reality, existence.
Becoming.
Even the atheists don't take Tom
It'd
Jones
be
seriously.
like if somebody asked me what's ultimate, and I wanted to give a similar, I'd say the transcendent. The transcendent is ultimate.
Yeah, let's be as vague as humanly possible.
Yeah. Formally abstract. Nothing concrete there, just formal abstractions. Yeah. The thing.
That
The
from
guy
which all
contradicted
things come.
himself. In the interaction yesterday, he literally contradicted himself. And then when I pointed out the contradiction, he was unflappable, He's like a policeman catches Ted Body on the dead body of a woman he's just strangled, and the officer says, "You're under arrest for homicide." And he's
Well,
like, "What? What are you talking about? What?"
Initially, he actually gave a partially truthful answer when he said he doesn't know, and no one can. Well, absent God's revelation, yeah, no one could know what's ultimate. And if you don't accept God's revelation, then you won't know what's ultimate either.
Yeah, see, they hate this, and their only response is to go, they're just given a script. These pre-suppers are given a script. Good.
It's
Then if it's a script, you should be prepared to answer it.
Yeah, it's fully laid out for critique.
It's only after he realized what the repercussions were of saying that he didn't know what's ultimate that he all of a sudden he started having a brainstorm.
Gotta throw something out there, That's what he did. It ends up changing it like 4 times.
The beyond is what's ultimate.
It's logic, then becoming, then then being.
I think he's a communist, isn't he?
Who?
Yeah, he's a commie. He's a pinko.
Which one?
Perspectives philosophy.
Yeah, he's like a full-fledged like Hegelian vegan. He has this. I'll read out his self-proclaimed title in his about section here. Your friendly neighborhood vegan socialist philosophy doctoral researcher.
So it's actually interesting because the conversation with you kind of touches on something he was talking about prior on his YouTube channel. Yeah, he's having like a little kerfuffle with, not really a kerfuffle, but I guess a kerfuffle with Vaush, and he's been yucking it up with Destiny. You know Destiny, right, Darth? You remember him?
Yeah, yeah, I know Destiny. Yeah.
Now, do you know who
By the
Vaush
way,
is?
my interaction with him has gotten, I believe, hundreds of thousands of views.
For Mill, yeah.
Now, do you know who Vaush is?
Vouch, yeah, I've had the displeasure of watching him for a few minutes.
I've recommended that you watch some of his videos because it will send you into like a complete a meltdown listening to this guy. He's even worse than Destiny, if it's even possible. If it's even possible to be the biggest liar on the planet, I think that Vaush might actually take the cake.
Vaush even sort of advocated for lying only if you sound more rhetorically correct, so to convince more people to your side.
Yeah,
and he had
that's
an entire discussion with Destiny in regards to this, and Destiny basically said, dude, this is a bad idea, because if someone has the facts, you're going to look like an idiot. And he said, well, most of the time they're not going to have the facts, and I can be more rhetorically sounding better than they are, so I'll convince more people and win the debate. And it's like, it's just so disingenuous.
But the funny thing is that Destiny, in his not God world, he has no facts. How does he interpret any facts to be any more accurate than anything Vaush says? How is his position? I mean, that's a side note. But the point is perspective philosophy weighed in on that whole little thing, and it was having like a critique of Vaush, saying that, basically Vaush is saying words and facts mean whatever I want them to mean. They're completely subjective. Well, he's actually representing an atheist position more truthfully than perspective philosophy or Destiny is, because all these guys do is they scoff at what Vaush says, but they never actually rebut it. How in a not God world can you interpret any facts? What is the ultimate framework or the model from which any facts are to be interpreted or said to be the case? And
well,
they never
to be devil's advocate,
they
well,
scoff at Vaush, but they never offer a rebuttal, which is funny.
To be devil's advocate, the way you would answer that is you would just go, I know what you're doing.
Yeah. But my point is this, is that your discussion about how he doesn't know what the ultimate nature of reality is, and thus any derivative facts he's incapable of interpreting, actually destroys his position when he's talking to Destiny and Vaush, in which he does not agree any facts are subjective, or that they're uninterpreted, so to speak. Right? He does not agree with that, but then he can't establish why he doesn't agree with it.
Yeah,
right?
all over the place a bit. I think it was a good. It's sort of finger on the head of the nail there when he said he's sort of fresh off the press, right? He's just sort of still finding his feet, it seems.
I actually enjoy watching Destiny and Vaush talk because it's a perfect example of atheist reasonings. It's just one arbitrary assertion versus another one.
Listening to Vaush is a bit of a pain. When it's like someone who legitimately wants like an armed revolution.
I like Sargon of Akkad's title for Vaush. He calls him a Wikipedia scholar.
It's kind of true. It's like when he's in a debate and someone brings up a point that he doesn't understand or doesn't know, he frantically starts Wikipediaing it.
That's why he calls him that. Like he'll say something and then he'll Wikipedia afterwards. And then it's funny because when you look up the article, you'll find that Vaush has actually misrepresented the article in order to support his position.
Huh, that's
it's so funny.
Vaush does it on purpose. He admits he does this. He wants to seem more rhetorically correct than factually correct, for the purpose of convincing as many people to his side as possible. That's the whole point. He doesn't care that if he's factually right or not. He just wants to sound correct.
How does he even know the fact of what his side is, though?
Yeah, they brush past all the fundamental stuff. They never even engage with it or even think about it. It's never even thought about as a thing for them.
What if? How does it affect that he has a side even?
It's just nothing fundamental.
Yeah, but he is a liar. He I mean, he's. If it's not obvious to anyone who watches him, he openly says he is.
It's just self-proclaimed. It's like he even had a discussion about whether or not you should be rhetorically correct or factually correct, and he argues for the or he doesn't argue for the latter, put it that way. It's funny because he's sort of a new brand of socialist where he
Now,
doesn't.
the question is how can you be rhetorically correct while stating false things?
This is the idea, is that you just sound convincing, right? Where the facts are sort of half.
I know what he meant. He meant lie to be consistent with his position.
Yeah.
I just have to insert a comment here. It's a little bit off topic, and then we can resume it in 30 to 60 seconds. Because many of us are inherent Christians, I'm going to have to ask at least that half of the people leave the room in the next few minutes. We are truly trying to increase flourishing and reduce suffering and hemorrhoidal infliction. So every time the atheists look into this room and see that it's packed out, they're in great hemorrhoidal pain. So if half of you could leave right now, we could alleviate at least some of the pain, psychic pain that atheists are having on today. It's not mandatory. It's just a recommendation. Thank you for that that public service announcement.
Can people who are banned see how many people are in the room?
No. What makes you think that she's smarter than Donald Trump?
Yeah.
Book smart. Not logically.
I don't think she's exceptionally smart. Okay.
She is exceptionally unethical.
How smart was it to set up a homebrew email server that she knew that a high school student could easily hack into, let alone state-sponsored hackers?
Darth, it depends on the severity of the stuff you're trying to hide, right? Maybe it was the better decision.
Yeah, and it just goes to show you that
for her,
Washington and even her own party let her off scot-free. And yet they want to hang Donald Trump for literally make-believe crimes, stuff that everybody knows is not true. But here we had a woman who actually violated the Espionage Act, and she did so on purpose. She did this with malintent. Okay, she sent and received not only top secret information, but some of that top secret information was of the highest classification. There's no way that she could not have known that there was a high likelihood that the server was accessed by state sponsors like China and other ones.
Yeah, you guys remember the quote she said, "Wipe the server." What do you mean, like with a cloth? I mean, I don't know. What?
I mean, talk about just pathological lying.
I'm honestly not so sure
what was she, the Secretary of State?
Putting her forward. Like, that was such a daft decision. Like, why would they put Hillary forward? She's wildly unpopular.
Probably because she had the political power to push it through, right? She had enough supporters.
I mean, why put her up as a candidate though? Like, I don't get it. Like, the Democrats sort of like killed themselves with that one.
Well, they basically talked themselves.
The Democratic Party is so much worse now than ever. I mean, it's pretty much clear that they're the moderate.
With Obama in the DNC in 2008. That's the reason why she jumped out of the race.
Oh, so it was like a delayed thing. It's like, hey man, I'll have my turn. You can get yours. And they did not anticipate Trump coming.
Yeah, the deal was she would get the Secretary of State, and then when his term was over, that she would be next up.
Well, the Democratic Party and all their apparatuses, the media and whatnot, completely talked themselves into believing that Donald Trump was going to lose.
I got to punish you right there, sir. It's not media; it's propaganda outlets.
Okay.
There you go. Yeah.
But they completely convinced themselves and convinced a lot of other people, including me, that Donald Trump really had no chance to win. I did not think Donald Trump was win.
I was in my my sixth form in the UK, like the day before the election, or sorry, several days before the election, and I was talking to my mates who were quite fans of Donald Trump. We thought it was like a forlorn hope at best. And when he
Yeah.
won, we were awfully smug.
Yeah, I
It was
didn't
quite
I didn't
funny.
think he was gonna win, but he came through.
Yeah, it's crazy.
You know, it would be hilarious if he runs for president again and wins again. Oh, that'd be so good.
I think he's passed. He might have passed the doable age barrier for.
I don't know. Apparently, with Joe Biden, there's no upper limit. You know.
Joe Biden's how many years older? Joe Biden's like 1 or 2 years older.
2, I think.
Well, it's not about. I guess when I say age, I was thinking about his mental condition.
But gentlemen,
Grandpa Joe.
what you're not taking into account is Trump could just push one of his sons into the seat with the name.
True. Well, I mean, like Justin Trudeau is.
I don't know.
Well, Donald Trump Jr. certainly has the same necessary chutzpah that his father does.
Yeah.
He's a smart guy.
And as long as he's espousing the same principles, I don't agree with everything that Donald Trump, did or said, but he ran an incredibly conservative administration. I was shocked at how conservative he was.
It didn't. Before he got elected, it wasn't portrayed as how conservative he actually was, right? It's more of it was surprising, right? Wasn't
I was very surprised. Yeah.
It wasn't what he ran on.
And evangelicals were chastised by the atheists out there and the leftists for supporting Donald Trump because he had been through 3 marriages and had been unfaithful. And my response is, I'll take an adulterer over a lesbian any day.
Oh, Hillary, I like that rumor. It's great.
Darth, look at the Atheist Helpline chat.
Someone wants to debate, is it?
I'm sorry, I'm not paying attention. I'm reading a DM.
Interesting thing about Hillary is that she was relatively unpopular in the UK, as well as Joe Biden. Not anymore, but he was, because of the foreign policy decisions that were put in place, which endangered British lives and directly killed 220 British citizens as a result of the voting for the wars. Donald Trump didn't start any, and I don't know why the media has portrayed him terribly over here in an unfair manner, I would say, and artificially decreased his public opinion. Even though foreign policy should be on the main plate, United Kingdom citizens.
Hello? Okay, we got a lot of talkers in chat, but they're not speaking up in VC. Hey, Braun, can you unmute your mic? Oh, he just left. Hey, Parakeet, aren't you a Christian? Hello, parakeet. Hey, Ant-Man, are you there? Yeah. What is your worldview?
A worldview.
Yeah.
What do you mean in like the more fundamental level? Because you'll probably agree with me on that, but I can do more shallow
Are
perspectives
you a
on
Christian?
particular things.
Are
Church
you
of
a Christian?
Wales, yeah.
You're a Christian?
Church of Wales, yes.
Oh, okay. Never mind.
I was a atheist. Used to.
Hey, Nick, are you there? Okay, I'm guessing you don't have a mic.
Sorry, I thought you were talking about the other Nick. Yeah,
What is your worldview?
a follower of Jesus.
Okay. Hey, Gregory, can you unmute your microphone? What is your worldview? Gregory. So, so 20 people in VC and no atheists willing to speak up.
I have a question for anyone listening. If they can answer it. Is it weak for a male to cry if he realizes like he's a sinner and guilty of sins and like bound for hell?
No.
I've been
I mean,
crying a lot. I've been crying a lot recently. I'm asking for myself.
you'll think you're bound to hell, which from what I've heard isn't a particularly nice place, then a feeling of anguish is probably normal.
Yeah, that's okay. You just don't want to do what Armin Navabi did, who has the largest atheist podcast, when he was a Muslim and he feared going to hell before reaching the age of accountability when he was 14 or 15, he jumped out a window to kill himself in order to avoid hell, breaking both legs and an arm, being in a wheelchair for 10 months. So you wouldn't want to do that.
Just you just repent.
Are people who inflict self-harm, are they bound for hell?
The only unforgivable sin is the rejection of the convicting power of the Holy Spirit to repent and turn to Jesus Christ as Savior.
So, I have a question. My uncle actually, this might sound hard to hear. He actually committed suicide with a shotgun. Is someone like that bound to hell?
No.
Not necessarily, no. Sometimes people are overcome by their own wrong thinking and their own emotions, and they make bad choices. Sometimes suicide is related to illnesses, where illnesses can, drugs, alcohol, even infections in the brain can cause that. Okay, something even as simple as a urinary tract infection, like for example in the elderly, can cause insane thinking. So who knows? God knows, but we don't.
Do you guys think the humanity originates from Africa, or it's just a strictly evolutionist thing?
Oh God, that's a
I mean,
good
even that
question.
is.
Many of us in here are Bible believing Christians, and of that, there might be some people who might hold to theistic evolution, but most of us do not.
Even amongst atheists, believers, that is disputed because of proto primate findings in places like Hungary. They found jaw and teeth of possible human ancestors dated far before anything found in Africa. So,
That their interpretation of the primary data is not necessarily true.
true. Trying to paint a picture without everything there, even from their perspective.
Does the Bible says it's not in Africa?
The location that Adam and Eve are placed in is probably somewhere in the Middle East, maybe possibly in the Iraq region. It talked about the Tigris and Euphrates rivers. Now, the current path of the Tigris and Euphrates river is not necessarily what it was then. But if we take the Bible in God speaking normally, not being cryptic or esoteric, then it's going to be at odds with evolution. The reason why there are Christians, even Bible believing Christians, do it is because they're capitulating to the modern dogmatic cabal of an evolutionary paradigm. Okay, it's just compromise.
You see, the reason I'm asking is because I saw, and I'm not sure if it's just a translation problem of the Bible, but I saw some Bibles would say that there are rivers that would also run in Africa when they describe, the Garden of Eden.
Well, it could be the same name, doesn't mean they're the same location. Okay. The bottom line is this: if you are going to destroy the Christian worldview, even if you claim to be a defender of the Christian worldview, if you don't take Genesis literally. Okay. Now, they may not intend to do that. There are even some great theologians who have been wishy washy on this, but I think it's unconscionable. God made himself very clear. I mean, just to show you how pathetic these people are, William Lane Craig, who has 2 earned PhDs and is considered one of the preeminent Christian apologists, said, well, Adam and Eve weren't made in 6 days. Adam and Eve were just some humanoids that God breathed the breath of life in, and God did not take some portion of Adam's rib to fashion Eve. I mean, you really have to bastardize the text to come out with something like that.
What do you think about William Lane Craig saying that presuppositionalism is a logical howler?
Okay, that is a miscitation and representation of what his actual critique is in the Five Views in Apologetics. Because he says that, which atheists quote with great delight, but they never give the full chapter of the context. And he said if that were all presuppositionalism had to
No,
offer,
he said as commonly understood, it's a
as
logical
commonly
howler.
understood, it would be a logical
He
howler.
didn't say that's his position.
Right. Now, later on certain podcasts, he has criticized it with more ridicule or sarcasm, saying it's just circular. But that's not the same critique that he gives in the Five Views on Apologetics. And he extols that because so many people have an admiration for Van Til, myself included, he tries to make a comparison to John the Baptist. And he says that um, or an allusion to John the Baptist vis-a-vis Jesus, where he said that Alvin Plantinga was a greater presuppositionalist, if you will, than Van Til. Well, he made a blunder. He even said that Van Til was not a philosopher. Now, I think it would behoove anybody to read Craig's critique. Now, there's one statement that he made in there that I still want to investigate. It has to do with a specific line of reasoning, not so much an attack on presuppositionalism, but it's something that I've looked up before and didn't have a satisfactory answer to. But the bottom line out there is William Lane Craig. As much as I admire him, I plan on reading the rest of his books. Okay, because there's a lot that we can learn from him. He's a brilliant philosopher. He is a brilliant theologian. I won't take that away from him, but I think he severely is compromised in this area. But remember, after all, this is a guy. He took courses on apologetics under John Warwick Montgomery, somebody who was a Christian apologist and champion of the faith. I think he's still alive. Not somebody that I want to throw under the bus. And I would encourage you to read any of Warwick Montgomery's works. And he founded Simon Greenleaf University. But both John Frame and Bonson, who are two of Van Til's greatest students, have pointed out very clearly that John Warwick Montgomery was guilty of misrepresenting and caricaturizing Van Til's apologetic. Now, William Lane Craig studied under Montgomery. So is it a stretch of the imagination to think that some of Montgomery's anti-Van Tilianism rubbed off on Craig? Right? Now, I'm being sincere. I'm not trying to throw Montgomery under the bus. He's a great defender of the faith, but he has misrepresented Van Til. And if you want to read about it, you can read about that in just go to the author name index in the back of Van Til's Apologetic, and also in John Frame's book, Van Til, an Analysis of His Thought. And if you want copies of either that, just DM it to me, and I'll send you a link where you can from a Google Drive where you can get it. So, he says, well, that would be circular reasoning. Well, so in other words, you're not going to start with God's self-revelation first. You're just going to start with some other principle as a given that doesn't even reference God. Craig was confronted. Do you know for certain God exists? In a debate. He goes, no, I don't. He also argues for Christianity, that Christianity is the best explanation. That's not how the apostles defended the faith.
Would you say if you try to reason to God in a non-circular fashion that it's a fallacy, Darth, when it comes to God?
Well, here's the point. Here's the mistake that Craig's making. There is no neutral starting point. Whatever your starting points is, they will either acknowledge God or they will deny God explicitly or more commonly implicitly. So, what he's trying to do is he's trying to reason to God by catering to one or more false beliefs that the unbeliever has about themselves and about this world.
So he's
Now,
starting with not God and then concluding God.
exactly.
But if God existed as the conclusion, then you would have to start
Yeah,
with God. He'd be in
we're
the
not
premises.
arguing God exists, therefore God exists. What we're arguing for is that all of the proximate facts that we're acquainted with, all right, are revelatory of God. In other words, they couldn't be facts at all unless they revealed God. Right? And so the way Van Til put it is that either facts are going, whatever facts they are, including the proximate facts of our sense perception and our self consciousness, either those facts are going to be reckoned by the individual as being within the context of God as our creator, or we will start that these are facts that are independent of God and are not revelatory of God. So who's being circular there, right? The very thing he criticizes Van Tillians and biblical presuppositionalists, he does himself. He's starting with proximate facts, and that either consciously or unconsciously, he's catering to unbelievers' false beliefs about their autonomy of reasoning, and about that there are facts that can be actual and intelligible without being reckoned as being created facts. Now, granted, when the guy who comes to change your flat tire and wears an atheist T-shirt and he says the sky is blue, we're not going to say, "Well, that's gibberish without God." I mean, metaphysically it is, but you say, "Yeah, sky is blue." But when we have these metaphysical discussions, you're either going to, when you invoke or conceive of proximate facts around you, that these are revelatory of God, or you will conceive of them of not being revelatory of God. And Van Til makes the point that all facts are revelatory of God because otherwise they couldn't be facts.
Well, they're taking advantage of the system they're in while denying they're in that system. Sort of like someone playing soccer and playing soccer according to all the rules. And then you ask them about it and they say, no, I'm not playing soccer. I'm playing baseball.
Yeah. Read for yourself William Lane Craig's critique in the 5 Views on Apologetics. It is not his critique, although he disagrees. He proclaims that Van Til is not a philosopher and that Plantinga is a greater presuppositionalist than Van Til. The critique is nowhere what the atheists claim it is. They are misquoting William Lane Craig. Now, having said that, he does say that presuppositionalists are circular. Like in one critique, he said of Scientifically, well, that's just being circular. Well, I just think that he's pandering to these people because William Lane Craig, as much as I like him and respect him in certain areas, he wants to let people to like him, right? When you challenge some people's fundamental beliefs, they get mad. So he's trying to cater to their false beliefs that facts are not revelatory of God. So you're going premise 1, premise 2, therefore God. But if we don't start with any of these facts only being facts and being intelligible as facts because they're revelatory of God, then you can't conclude therefore God. How can you establish that facts are facts in a not God world and then conclude therefore God? So the very circularity that he's accusing of, he's committing. Because he's starting with the circularity of uncreated facts. Let's take when the unbeliever says, "Well, you haven't proven God," right? Now, the way I used to answer is say, "Oh, well, yeah, God can be proven," right? And I would go down my evidential line of reasoning, rather than just say, "Wait a minute, what do you mean God has been proven?" That's a claim. So all the facts around you don't indicate God?
What do you mean
How did you?
proof? Can proof
Yeah.
exist in a not God world? Because that'd be a weird question. If you believed only proof could exist in a God world, it'd be
We
weird
should
to ask for
never,
God to be proven, right?
as Christians, we never put our partiality to God on the side. There's no neutrality about God as creator. We're not neutral, they're not neutral, and nobody's neutral. But they pretend as though they're neutral. So actually read the chapter of Craig's critique, and you'll see that the actual chapter itself is not the refutation that they think or quote it to be. So when they say it's a logical howler, all Craig is referring to is the typical run-of-the-mill reaction as as presuppositionalism is popularly conceived of, which generally is a misconception.
It's clear that's what he means by it. It's unambiguous, but they just like to throw the word presupposition and howler in the same sentence, right? And
Yeah,
claim that he said
they
that.
are
They don't
misrepresenting
care. They
Craig.
don't care that
Listen,
that's not what he said.
yeah, you can take this to the bank, right? They are misquoting and misrepresenting what Craig said in that chapter. But
Yeah,
it is true. It is true. At reasonablefaith.org, when he critiques in at least two videos where he responds to biblical presuppositionalism and especially Sci-10 Brugengate, he does make a sarcastic crack. Well, that's just circular, but he doesn't elaborate on it.
Also, there's probably many atheists who quote that it's a logical howler, who just get it from other atheists or other atheist sources. But you know that whoever first came up with it knew that they were lying.
Yeah,
They knew
the
they were
people who
misrepresenting
initially
it.
posted this had to have known, unless they're retarded, they had to have known that they were misrepresenting the quote in the chapter.
Maybe it was Vouch. So it's fine to lie about stuff, right? As long as it
Well, you
supports
see, when
your
I read
position.
that quote, I went, okay, all right. And then I searched for the book, and I got a copy of the book, and I looked it up, and I went, damn, these SOBs completely misrepresented what Craig was saying here.
I
But
heard
then
it from.
again, what's that?
I was gonna say I heard it from Jack Angstreich initially.
Well, Jack has been corrected on it any number of times. He knows it's false, so he's just
Okay,
continuing
he
to
has
lie.
heard. He has heard before that this is a look. They don't listen. They don't care about the truthfulness of what they say or the accuracy. All they care is that they throw mud and hope something sticks. That quotation is an out of context and a caricature of the actual critique that Craig said. Okay, if they really want to quote Craig to attack presuppositionalism, they would be better off quoting, the audio recordings where he criticized Sci-10 Brugengate as being circular.
I could even pass you the video in which he says that, because he's talking
Would
with
you send me Would you send me a timestamp on that? But why am I not surprised that one among several well-known atheists are so either grotesquely sloppy or are deliberately misrepresenting what Craig said?
Well, Jack
Yeah, I can send you.
still uses. I think I just heard it a few days ago or a week ago.
Look, have you
He
seen?
still uses that God can't have
Listen,
knowledge.
yeah,
That
look.
line of reason, that sophistic line of
Okay,
reasoning.
he keeps on repeating, what justifies God's knowledge. This has been answered over and over and over and over again from a philosophical position. And as
That's what I'm
far
saying.
as
He
I
doesn't
know,
care.
there has not been a theological refutation of the theological defense. Okay,
No,
he
it's
just
just
throws it
repeating
on.
it.
Yeah, he's just throwing the objection on unsuspecting Christians and theists who aren't familiar with this sophistry. And you can take this to the bank. That line of reasoning is sophistry. Okay. By the way, send me a timestamp with that. Okay.
Yeah, I'm looking for it. It's with Concrete Plus, but I'm looking for it right now.
Yeah, send me not just the link to the video, but the timestamp. Right. Well, here's another one. All right. He said Christians can't interpret the Bible properly because we don't have access to God's intentions. Right. Now, if Jack had had more of an education in theology and especially the doctrine of inspiration, he wouldn't be so stupid or foolish to make such a line of reasoning. Right. Now, the point is, this is sophistry. It's because if one agent communicates to another and we have to have access to their intentions, right? Then we can't interpret what Jack is saying because we don't have access to his intentions. You understand? Oh, he's server deafened.
I think he's listening to the video, trying to find the timestamp for you.
You know how many times that they have quoted Craig? It's so cringeworthy to see them uh, inaccurately cite Craig, because you pointed out as it would be a logical how as at presuppositionalism as it is commonly understood would be a logical howler, but presuppositionalism has been so caricaturized and misrepresented that the common understanding of people who don't take the time to actually read primary sources, okay, their common understanding is a misrepresentation. The reason why Craig doesn't argue presuppositionally.
I got it. I got the source if you want.
All right, send that to me.
Yeah.
How familiar are you with Jack Engstrom?
Well, I watch a bunch of your videos and his videos on YouTube.
Yeah.
So
Are you aware of the fact that he obsessively stalks me from social network to social network? He's been doing it for 10 years.
Yep.
Did you watch his video of where he expresses his love for the cinema in no uncertain terms?
Yeah.
What do
Yeah,
you
I've
think
seen
of that video?
Oh, you see, so it reminds me of the book I was telling you about. That like of Julius Evola. I sent you a message on that, and it basically shows how the morality of atheist is just like it's something like it starts off. It's like a big descent, like it starts with God and then they deny him and then they go into utilitarianism and
Well, look, for the most part, they're not offering decisive refutations of God. For the most part, they're sophists. They know they're sophists, and all they're doing is throwing out stuff that will neutralize any advocacy for God. Okay, so like the knowledge question about God, that's sophistry. Okay, the issue we can't interpret the Bible because we don't have access to God's intentions. That is sophistry. Right. The idea that God is unfalsifiable, therefore God is not worthy of consideration because he cannot be falsifiable in principle. That is sophistry. Okay, that's just a permutation of the verification principle, right? And do you think he cares? No, he doesn't.
I gave you the link and timestamps in the end.
Thank you.
Also, there's another thing that he mentions a lot about justified true beliefs, and how like
Yeah,
what is the justification of God? But even like there's a lot of things I don't get. Like even if we don't know the justification, let's say, right? Let's say there is one and we don't know it. Does it mean that God doesn't have it, or like I don't see how it is a thing.
No, he's making a category error. Either he doesn't know about the theological doctrines of the mind of God, right? Or he does know and he's simply ignoring or misrepresenting it, right? So, for example, in biblical theology, and by the way, I am no expert on biblical theology, but I know enough to be minimally conversant. So, in biblical theology, God is referred to as the Principium Ascendi, the ground of all being. He's also known as the Principium and I don't know if I'm going to pronounce this correctly, Principium Cognoscentia, which means he is the ground and basis of all knowledge. Well, the reason why is because any and all facts could only be facts because they start in the mind of God. Okay, you got that? Facts can only be what they are because they start in the mind of God, and then God implements his plan so that the facts are now instantiated. So God's mental states that we may refer to as mind or thoughts or even knowledge, right, are archetypal. Our mental states that we might call beliefs or knowledge are ectypal, meaning they're derivative. And he's also making the mistake that when we speak of God, we are speaking analogically. At times, we may be speaking anthropomorphically about God. So, the basis of why God's beliefs, mental states, are true is because He's the originator of these things, and then He implements it. Okay.
Yeah, I think I heard someone say that to him once. I'm not sure though, but and I think he said something like, "It's not a justification," and like
No,
I'm
this
not
is what
sure
Jack
that.
does. Anything Jack doesn't understand or Jack cannot offer rebuttal to, he's just simply dismissive, like, I'm not seeing the relevance of that. Right? If God's mental states about all affairs are what they are because every fact is what it is because it starts in the mind of God and the plan of God, right? Then why would God need external justification?
God's the one who institutes and secures all states of affairs
Yeah.
and all truth
We
propositions.
need justification because we're not God.
That's like
Okay?
saying a kind of a crude analogy, but if it's like saying, I ate an apple, and someone says, "Well, what's your justification that you ate the apple?" I mean, well, it's not quite right, but yeah, I'm the one who did it.
The facts in any given situation, and although I'm not trying to let anyone think that I believe in determinism, but the fact of the matter is facts are only what they are, including acts of human agency, because it starts in the plan of God. And within God's plan, He can grant, you know, the fact that we can make some free choices, but they wouldn't be free choices if God had not ordained the parameters so that there could be choices.
What
Look,
Jack
look,
is doing, I thought of this the other day, is what he's doing with that line when he's trying to ask what God's justification is he is insisting that you conceptualize God as a derivative being, not as what is ultimate.
yeah. What happens with unbelievers, right? And Van Til points this out, is they're constantly conceiving of God as though He was encapsulated, or what's the word I'm looking for? Um, Subject to some realm that we all are subject to. And this is biblically fallacious, right? We are contingent beings. We are encapsulated by a greater reality, if you will. But all these things that encapsulate us are in the hand of God. God is not subject to anything independent of Himself. God is not encapsulated by anything. Look, you can take this to the bank. It's sophistry, okay? And it's pretty piss poor. Look, if God is a person and He communicates to another person, and we cannot interpret what they say to us because we don't have access to His intentions, how can I understand what you're saying right now when I don't have access to your intentions? You say, well, you could ask me what I meant by that, but then in your answer, how do I know what that means? Okay? He's not somebody that if you were wise that you would sit and listen to. Okay.
Well, to be fair, I mean, I've learned some things listening to him, at least from philosophical concepts and things like that. Just like I did listening to you or other people.
Right. But here's the problem. Here's the problem. Then whatever good or benefit you get, then you're also liable to be wrongly influenced by his sophistry. It would be better to listen to a philosophical source, even though they might not be a Christian. Let's say they have a degree in philosophy or logic, right? Where they are not known to engage in sophistry.
I actually, the line of reasoning you were just mentioning, Darth, about not having access to people's intentions. I think he would actually be fine saying that no one can interpret anything anyone else says as long as it can neutralize God in some way, right? As long as it can stymie anything that leads to theological significance, as you say.
You see, what I've found over the last 10 years is that atheists, with some exceptions, simply don't care what they say about God or the God of the Bible. They just hope something sticks.
It's the dump truck tactic, right?
The
Just
what?
the dump truck tactic. You just dump a bunch of mud on a guy and try to bury him.
Like, for example, when we talk about God's knowledge, are we speaking analogically or univocally? And univocally would mean that it can only mean one thing, right? Right. So can we speak univocally about God? Well, Van Til says no. God has to communicate to us analogically, not univocally. So rather than talk about knowledge, okay, or speak about God anthropomorphically, we could just simply say God possesses the truth value of all propositions because all propositions that are true start in the mind of God that are in His plan.
Well, all propositions that are false would also be secured by God as well, right?
Well, that's because since He knows all true propositions, then by default He would know which propositions are false. All right, I'm just going to listen to the clip.
Did you post the clip someplace?
Yo, Matt Yester, are you there?
All right, are you there, Zealot? Are you there?
Yeah. Can you hear me?
Yeah. So I started listening to it, right? And he, hold on one second. He missed, first of all, the first mistake he made is give me a second here. First mistake he makes is he gives the wrong title to the book. That's okay. That's nitpicking. I've slightly, given the wrong title for a book, so we can let that pass. Then he says the opening line of the chapter is such and such. He's misquoting. It's not the opening line, right? Now, let me read to you what it says. John Frame thinks of presuppositionalism as a version of Reformed epistemology. Indeed, one that makes a more profound use of Reformed convictions than does Plantinga's version. I should be very interested to know what Kelly Clark makes of that claim. For my part, I think that presuppositionalism is, to borrow Plantinga's phraseology, a groping, implicit, inchoate expression of the view articulated with such clarity by Plantinga under a name of Reformed epistemology. Okay, so that was a dig right there at presuppositionalism. Okay, so that's not the opening line, right? So I wonder if he actually even has a copy of this and he's read it, right? Now that this is be recording and someone's going to let him know that I'm saying this, he'll probably either find a copy or dig out the copy he has and actually read. Okay, now this is the second paragraph. Now the quote that he gave, right, is he said it's the opening line. Okay, it's not the opening line. So then we go to the second paragraph. The central insight of presuppositionalism is that theological rationalism is a false doctrine. We are not dependent on an argument or evidence in order to believe rationally in God or even to know that he exists. Frame and I agree that the Spirit creates faith in the heart and that faith may or may not arise through an argumentative process. Now we're going to go to paragraph 3, right? Now, go back.
You know what the first line of that essay is?
You should be able to offer an excerpt.
Something like.
Did you hear that? Do you know what the first line of that essay is?
All presuppositionalist arguments suffer from a logical howler.
Did you hear that? He said all presuppositional arguments suffer from a logical howler. Now, are you there?
Yeah. I'm listening. Yeah.
Okay, so he says it's first he gets the title wrong, which we can give him a pass on that, right? He says it's the first line in the essay, which it is not. Okay, and then he says in the quote itself, which starts in the third paragraph, he says all presuppositionalism suffers from it. Now, I'm going to read you the quote. He says in the third paragraph, where presuppositional, and remember, he says it's the opening line. It's not even the first line of the third paragraph. So the third paragraph starts, where presuppositionalism muddies the waters is in its apologetic methodology. As commonly understood, presuppositionalism is guilty of a logical howler, right? As commonly understood, presuppositionalism is guilty of a logical howler. It commits the informal fallacy of petitio principii, or begging the question, for it advocates presupposing the truth of Christian theism in order to prove Christian theism. Frame himself says that we are forced to say God exists, presupposition, therefore God exists, conclusion, even though such reasoning is clearly circular. It's difficult to imagine how anyone with a straight face think to show the theism to be true by reasoning God exists, therefore God exists. Nor is this said from the standpoint of unbelief. A Christian theist himself will deny that question-begging arguments prove anything. Now, doesn't that sound devastating? Right? So let's continue with the first sentence of the next paragraph. If this were all presuppositionalism had to offer as an apologetic, it would be so ludicrous that no one would have taken it seriously. But at the heart of presuppositionalism lies an argument often not clearly understood or articulated, but is extremely powerful. It is an epistemological transcendental argument. A transcendent argument, as Kant used the term, is an argument for a reality based upon that reality being the very conditions, even of the denial of that reality. Thus, Kant argued for the existence of categories of understanding on their basis of their being the preconditions of all intelligible experience, including the denial that there are categories. Frame explicitly endorses such an argument, stating that our apologetics should present the biblical God not merely as a conclusion to the argument, but as the one who makes the argument possible. Then he goes on to give a slight critique, saying Frame fails to develop such an argument. Instead, he confuses a transcendental reasoning with what the medievals called demonstratio quia, proof that precedes the consequent to the ground. Then he goes on giving some more critique. But then he says this, but Plantinga's epistemology, and I'm skipping the rest of the paragraph, so I want you to know I'm not taking anything out of context. He then, after he gets done critiquing Frame further, he says, but by contrast, Plantinga's epistemology has been seen as an extended transcendental theistic argument, right? He then goes on to praise what he believes is Plantinga's transcendental argument as superior, right? Now, he says in here later on, he says that, hold on, let me just see here. I'm looking for where he says Van Til is not a philosopher, right? Oh, here it is. He says, both of these arguments are philosophically sophisticated and careful articulations of these themes that are rung in presuppositionalism, but with an uncertain sound. They are arguments that would be endorsed by any classical apologist and need to be differentiated from the confused claims of presuppositionalists about the inevitability of circular reasoning to presuppose Christian theism in one's apologetic and so on. Van Til, for all of his insights, was not a philosopher, right? And it has fallen to another to discern the true shape of the argument in the cloud of confusion. The Reformed tradition needs to realize what a treasure it has in Alvin Plantinga, right? And then he makes an allusion here. He says the Reformed tradition needs to realize what a treasure it has in Alvin Plantinga and to appropriate his insights. People came from the utmost parts of the earth to hear the wisdom of Van Til, and behold, a greater than Van Til is here, meaning Plantinga. He just threw Van Til under the bus, saying he's not a philosopher. Now, Van Til had a PhD in philosophy. Van Til read many of the original works of ancient philosophers in their original languages. Okay?
Yeah.
Now, Craig studied under John Warwick Montgomery, who is well known by presuppositionalism as misrepresenting and having a faulty critique of Van Til. Craig studied apologetics. I think it might have been maybe it was Talbot, but he said that he studied under apologetics under John Warwick Montgomery, who is well known to misrepresenting Van Til. It's inexcusable that he says that Van Til was not a philosopher when he was. So Jack Angstreich has misrepresented the critique. Does Craig take issue with Ventilian presuppositionalism as he sees it? Yes, he does. Right? And
Yep.
he appeals to Plantinga as the greater presuppositional philosopher. But the critique and criticism that Craig offers is much more sophisticated and nuanced, and does not, what he says is not representative in the critiques that the atheists quoting Craig. They are bastardizing his critique, and they're misquoting him in this critique.
Yeah, I see. I think like it's pretty obvious now. Like the thing you've read about, like how Craig points out that it's a subtle, transcendental, epistemological argument. If I said it correctly.
Craig's criticism is more nuanced and
Yeah.
more, how shall we say it, is at a much more sophisticated level, right?
Mm-hmm.
But he's appealing to Plantinga as the greater presuppositionalism. If he was against all presuppositionalism, why is he citing Plantinga as the greater presuppositionalist than Van Til? Okay? So I just proved to you that Angstreich misrepresents what Craig said. If he wanted to sit there and say, well, Craig as a classical apologist disagrees with Van Til and Frame, and he criticized it, I say, okay, fine, I don't have a problem there. But the criticism that they appeal to and the text that they appeal to is a misrepresentation and a statement made out of context. Now, does he accuse presuppositionalism of being circular on his podcast? Yes, he does. But he doesn't go into depth like he did in this critique. So don't forget one thing. He completely botched that Van Til was a philosopher, right? He got a PhD in philosophy from Princeton University. And also keep in mind that Craig may have very well been strongly influenced by Warwick Montgomery to poison the well against Van Til. Because we know that Montgomery, and by the way, I'm not trying to throw him under the bus. He's a great Christian author, great apologist. But we know that he did, in fact, misrepresent Van Til.
Do you think Plantinga is a better than Van Til, or?
In certain respects, no, and in certain respects, yes. Van Til spent the bulk of his teaching career teaching apologetics in seminary. Van Til spent the bulk of his career teaching philosophy, right? So, like, for example, as far as I know, Van Til, his arguments just lead to a generic God. Okay.
You said Van Til there.
Excuse me.
I think you're
yeah, I
misspeaking
misspoke. Plantinga. Now, I'm willing to be corrected, but as far as I know. But I have a lot of admiration for Van Til. I think the guy's brilliant. I have a number of his books, which I still plan to read. Okay.
You mean
I think
Plantinga?
Plantinga. Yeah. I think that
you keep saying the wrong name. You didn't.
Okay. Yeah. All right. I'm tired. My caffeine has long worn off. It's worn off. Okay.
Basically, we don't have access to your intentions, Darth. So we have
there
no
you
idea
go.
what you're saying
Yeah.
anymore.
I was being cryptic. So I just demonstrated to you the quoting out of context and factual misrepresentation of what Craig said.
Yeah, it's true.
And what I just did for you, because I've read this several times, I just represented Craig's criticism accurately. to you about presuppositionalism. Jack Angstreich didn't. He couldn't care less. Or I should say, he could not care less.
Right.
Okay, so Craig is not saying biblical presuppositionalism is a logical howler. He's saying, as it is commonly understood, it is a logical howler.
Yeah, I wonder how seriously Jack takes anything else Craig says.
No, it's just ammunition for fodder, to see what sticks. Yes, does Craig criticize presuppositionalism? Yeah. Does he
You know
go
what he
into more
criticizes even
specificity?
more? Atheism.
Yeah.
I've never read any of Bunsen or Van Til or Plantinga, or like, is there any one in particular, or any book maybe that would be best for starting?
Well, I could send you a book called Every Thought Captive, which is a great introductory short paperback. I'll send you the electronic version. But if
Is
you
this
really
in
want to get to, it's called Every Thought Captive. It's by Richard Pratt.
is this in your Google
And
Drive?
yeah, do you have my Google Drive?
Yeah.
Okay, go into the Van Til folder, and that book, Every Thought Captive, should be in there. The next thing, if you want to do, is read. If you really want to get into the meat of it, is read Van Til's Apologetic. Now, the only caveat that I have is both Bonson and Van Til are staunchly Calvinistic. I am not, but that doesn't deter me from the greatness of the material in that book. Okay. Also, you could read Van Til's analysis of his thought. That's also in the Van Til folder, and it's also in the Frame folder. There's also a folder in there with Bonson's books. In there, Always Ready, Presuppositional Apologetics, Stated and Defended.
Okay, sounds good. And you're not a Calvinist?
No.
Is there like what's the difference between you and them?
It's mostly hermeneutical, meaning that when we approach certain verses, that they will decide that the semantic range of certain verses will lead to a different view of God's sovereignty or the nature of man, what man's capacities are, the result of the fall. So if you want to say doctrinally where I disagree, I believe in total depravity, but I don't believe it in the Calvinistic view. They would think that I have a defective view of total depravity because they hold that the Calvinistic doctrine of total depravity would best represent what the Bible teaches. So, and they would also think that I had a faulty view of sovereignty.
But you don't see them like some sort of heretical sect, right?
Only Matt Yester.
Okay.
Yeah, only Matt Yester. You have to watch out for him.
Hello?
That's a joke. Okay.
No, I know.
Joke. Absolute joke. No, I there are some people that have much more stinging
Yeah,
criticisms.
Matt is an absolute joke, Darth. I agree.
Yeah, yeah. Do I consider it a cult? No. Do I consider it incorrect? Yeah. And they consider my view incorrect. Right?
What's your current?
What's my what?
I mean your branch or of Christianity?
Oh, it's called Darth Dawkinism.
Okay,
Yeah.
you don't subscribe to anything special.
No, I'm
like,
joking. No, I'm a biblical fundamentalist evangelical theology.
oh, okay.
Okay. Darth, you remember Jenna?
What?
You remember the Muslim Jenna?
Oh yeah.
Do you think that's her? Jenna, do you think that's her?
I don't know.
Well, it has to be because no one knows.
Yeah. So when we come into this world, we're going to start with proximate facts, not ultimate facts. We're going to start with our own sense perceptions, our own self consciousness. So that would be proximate facts. But the ultimate facts would be God Himself. So we start, and Van Til will call that spiral reasoning rather than circular reasoning. So when we take these proximate facts, as we develop neurologically and we start to develop in God's world a consciousness of God because He makes us conscious of Him, we're either going to retain or cast off that these proximate facts are only what they are within the context of God. Right? So God is our ultimate starting point, but our sense perception, our self consciousness are our proximate starting points. But those proximate starting points would not even be meaningful, intelligible unless they were in the context of God.
Yeah.
Who? You mean Destiny? Yeah. No, that's a proximate starting point, not my ultimate starting point or my ultimate commitment. Because these proximate starting points, unless they were God given, God ordained, and they're revelatory of God, right? See, Van Til takes the position that all the facts that we become acquainted with are revelatory of God, and God has designed them that way. It's just that the sinful human heart suppresses that and just wants to believe that these facts can have actuality, intelligibility in and of themselves without the necessity of referencing God as creator. But I always remind people we need to simplify this. It's just like the good old children's song. He's got the whole world in his hands. Well, if the whole world and all the facts that are in the world and their connectedness and relatedness are not instituted, secured by God in the hand of God, then what do they mean?
Darth, I had a question. What if I appealed to some special revelation from a God with two persons inside of the Godhead? How would you refute that?
First of all, you wouldn't be able to do that historically, could you?
No, I wouldn't.
No, but
Because
then
the
you would have
Christian
to
God.
say that you were a special recipient. But the point is, though, then those two persons in eternity past, their relationship is not within any context. Whereas the two persons within the Trinity are always in the context of the third. Right?
Could you go into detail on
And
that?
what role? See, here's the thing: is about the plan of salvation. What is the role in the plan of salvation of the two members? We have a clearly defined roles in the redemptive plan of human history, and that's why it's called the economic Trinity. It is the respective roles that they play in creation, revelation, salvation, redemption.
Yeah, could you go into detail about them relating in with
Yeah, a good book to read on that is Bosserman's book on the paradox of the Trinity. I never remember the title. Just look up if you that's in my Google Drive. Okay.
two people relate in the
Yeah, and
context?
it's a difficult to read book. Okay, but
Yeah.
he takes off where Van Til left off, and he does a tour de force defense of the necessity that God be multi-personal and Trinity, as opposed to a duality or a quadrinity.
Okay.
See, I bet that was an eye opener for Zealot. How Jack Angstrike is saying, "Oh, it's the very first sentence. It opens up saying, it's a logical howler." Not only is it not the first sentence, it's even a miscitation. It doesn't even accurately represent what Craig's actual criticism is.
What if I said there was a God molecule that that is ultimate, or that is the ground of all being?
Well, a molecule is something that would be extended in time and space.
A particle also, would you say too, right? Yeah, it would. Let's say we have this immaterial non-personal ultimacy. How would you refute
Not
that?
personal, then how would you be able to instantiate this ultimacy? On what basis?
So if an atheist comes to the determination that this which is ultimate, everything
How does
derived.
he come? Wait a minute. How does he come to know? If it's impersonal, how does he come to know what's ultimate and eternal?
That's a good question.
Okay, because if it's ultimate, it's also going to have to be eternal. So how does he know that whatever he comes across is eternal?
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, I see.
Don't you
Yeah.
understand? Listen, don't you understand that the wisdom of the world God has turned into foolishness? The moment they deny God, the very grounds and criterion upon which they're denying God, they're violating when they espouse their worldview.
Yeah.
Okay?
So they couldn't come to that determination because they would have to falsify
No,
every
because
other.
because it violates the very criterion of why they don't believe in God.
Yeah. Okay. Well, how about this one? How do we know? You got to hear the full question though before you answer this one. How do you know that we're not in a simulation that is ran by some humans and they have a god? And like, how would you falsify that?
Well, now you're talking about another God.
Yeah.
Well, how do you know about that God? I know of the one true God because he's revealed himself. Now, the unbelievers laugh at this. So what if they laugh at it? If I said anything else, it wouldn't be coherent. So my first answer is because I know that God has revealed himself. Now, second of all, that revelation cannot be denied, right? It's because the characteristics of God are the very necessary properties and attributes out of which are going to be necessary and sufficient for human intelligibility. So any other God is going to have to um, cut off part of God's attributes. But then God wouldn't be perfect anymore. He wouldn't have all great making properties.
Yeah.
See, the more we understand the implications and ramifications of what God has stated, even in seemingly simple verses, the more easy it will be see the fraud of unbelief. Like, look at it this way. the atheists want to communicate directly or indirectly that somehow they're unconvinced or neutral. You have a burden of proof. But you see, in the biblical position is nobody's neutral. Whatever proximate facts you start with or discussing, you're going to decide at any given moment whether these are created facts or that they're not to be acknowledged as created facts. So now nobody's neutral. Now, unless something is a created fact, and specifically that it's created by the God of the Bible, then in how could it be a fact? How, facts are what they are in the Christian worldview because God is the ultimate reference point. God is the
Okay.
ultimate context which makes facts the facts. If they say God is not necessary, then what is the context that makes facts the facts? When I asked Lawrence Krauss that, and I stood fast on the line of questioning, he got really ticked and made an obscene reference to my line of questioning because he couldn't answer it. That's why I asked the question, because I knew that in his God denialism, it's ultimately incoherent on its own terms. And once he realized that he was boxed in, he got ticked.
Yeah.
So he tried to segue away, but I wouldn't let him. And when I wouldn't let him and I stuck to my line of questioning, that's when he decided to go to an obscene remark.
Yeah. Well, I have another question then, and this I don't know if you're gonna jump into evidentialism.
All right. I have to go in a minute or two, so make it fast.
Okay. How do we know the Bible, the Old Testament and the New Testament, is not a copy of some other religion that came before it that had the real doctrine of the Trinity?
Because the properties and the attributes of the God of the Bible are what are necessary and sufficient. And if what you said is true, then that would be some other God that was missing the attributes that the God of the Bible has, one or more of the central characteristics of the God of the Bible. You see, you can run your imagination run wild, and this is what unbelievers do because they're not content. The moment unbelievers or atheists realize that they need God for human intelligibility, then do they automatically say, "Well, I'm having a come to Jesus moment. I'm going to accept Jesus as my savior"? No, then they say, "Well, there could be other gods out there."
Well, I'm not trolling or anything, and I'm not being argumentative, but I don't think that was like
I don't think that you are.
Yeah. I just wanted to say, like, I don't think that was like a direct answer to the question, because what I'm saying is, like, how do we know that it's not a copy of a doctrine that came before it, that the doctrine of the Trinity? And
how do we know anything? Is because the only way you could know something is that the God of the Bible exists and he has the attribute set that he does. If we deviate from that character set, then it's going to destroy intelligibility.
Yeah, that's not really what I'm asking, though.
No, because the God's revelation is self-attesting. Right? Now, unbelievers, when they hear that, they laugh. Right? There can only be one worldview that provides for intelligibility. And if we establish that there's a worldview that it has the necessary and sufficient attributes, there can't be any other. Only one worldview can have the property set that is necessary for intelligibility.
Yeah, all right. How about this? I'll use this analogy. Let's say we have the DC comics, and we have Superman, right? And then we have this another writer who comes up with this idea of having the same characteristics
Good.
and
Tell me about your God.
Oh no, I'm just asking, like, how could we be?
I would say the same thing. Tell me about your God. Go ahead.
Oh no, that's not what I'm getting at.
Look. This has been the path of humanity to construct or erect idolatrous conceptualizations in order to evade God's clear revelation through natural and special revelation. What you're appealing to is just another attempt, and I know you're not trolling. You're just simply trying to say, well, what if an unbeliever? This is just another attempt to foist idolatry to avoid the one true God who has revealed himself.
Another thing is that if it had the same exact properties, then you're just referring to the same thing and just calling it a different name. If you're talking about it's identical in every single way, then you're not making an actual distinguishment. You're not distinguishing between two things. Right? So
how do I know it's not copied?
That's basically what I was asking. Yeah.
Okay. How do you know that Christian? I'm reading from Ed Fries. How do you know it's not copied from another religion that came before it with the exact same property? Because there is none. There is no God because it doesn't exist in history. Number two,
not now.
Okay. Yeah. Well. Here's the thing. All right. The God of the Bible has all the great making properties. Only one worldview can have that property set for human intelligibility. Okay.
Well,
if you're going to say, listen, you can deal with these vague hypotheticals, but you're going to have to flesh this out. You're going to have to unpack it. You're going to have to tell me about your God's properties. Has your God intervened in the course of human history and engaged in redemption?
I don't think that's really that's not the meat of the question.
You're not understanding. No, I know that, but you're not understanding this. This is just a pseudo-intellectual attempt of smuggling in what is just simply idolatry. Okay, Bosserman points out in the book, only one worldview can have the grounds for intelligibility, and once we establish that it has the grounds of intelligibility, then that's it. It's over. Now, if you're not going to accept the revelation of God that He is the lone creator who has all the properties and attributes, then you're going to have to establish the actuality of your God and what His attributes are. When you just start making it up willy nilly, to start of it sounds, this is the way teenagers think. Where is this God in human history? Where is He?
Yeah.
Where is it? Where is your God's incarnation?
Yeah. I'll get to that. Let's say the person who started the Bible, hypothetically, got this idea from another writer who was writing.
No, the Bible was written by over 40 different authors. It wasn't written by one person. And the Bible is a historical development. Where is your historical development?
I guess
story that Christianity copied from.
Yeah, I mean this is lame that Christianity copied from anything because Christianity is unique among the world religions. The God of the Old and the New Testament are entirely unlike any other gods. It's only through people's ignorance of the character and property set of the God of the Bible vis-a-vis the property and character set of the gods throughout the course of human history. None of these gods bear actual resemblance to the God of the Bible. Now, people who don't know a lot about these other gods think they bear resemblance, like they will talk about the God of Islam, but they're not. Show me another God who's absolute and ultimate. Go ahead.
Yeah, this God is forgotten about, and the person who
Being
came up
absolute
with
and ultimate, is going to include that God has all great making properties. Does the God of Islam have all great making properties? No, he doesn't.
Yeah. Yeah, so I see what you're saying now. So I guess the
Is
question would be,
Ahura Mazda the god of Zoroastrianism in monotheism? Is that God ultimate and absolute? No, it's not.
no.
When you look into it, look up Ahura Mazda.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, so I understand what you're saying now, Darth.
Okay, so we got a guy here who is probably Darth Dawkins debunked himself. Okay. Yeah, so Aqua Code is probably Darth Dawkins debunked. That's why he's posting that crap.
Yeah. Hey, I'm Jenna. Can you unmute your microphone? Jenna. Yeah, I guess not. Hey, Ed, what is your worldview?
My worldview.
Yeah,
It's a
what is it?
globe.
What?
It's a globe. It's not flat.
That's
All
not what
right,
I'm asking.
I'm going, guys. I might be on later.
All right. See you later, Darth.